When someone distances themselves from you, the first impulse that often arises in the heart is to chase after them, to demand answers, to seek explanations, to close the gap that suddenly feels unbearable. But the truth is, chasing is a movement that takes you away from your center. It is a motion that scatters your energy and places your power into the hands of another. When you chase, you are no longer anchored. Your mind begins to spin in circles. What did I do wrong? Why is he ignoring me? How do I bring him back? And this restless questioning is the very opposite of stillness. It is like standing in a lake where the water was once calm, but the moment you begin to stir it, the surface ripples, the mud rises, and clarity is lost. What you need in such moments is not more movement, but less. Not more pursuit, but stillness. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is strength. It is the art of remaining centered when everything around you seems uncertain. Imagine a tree in the wind. The leaves may tremble, the branches may sway, but the roots remain deep, unmoved, grounded in the earth. When someone withdraws from you, your stillness becomes your root. It is what prevents you from being carried away by the storm of your emotions. Do not chase, because chasing always creates imbalance. It places you on uneven ground where the other person's actions dictate your state of being. If he gives attention, you feel joy. If he withdraws, you feel despair. This is a life of dependence, not a life of strength. Returning to stillness means remembering that your stability does not come from the attention of another, but from the awareness within yourself. In stillness, you regain clarity. The mind that was restless begins to quiet down. And in this silence, you begin to see what was hidden by the noise of your emotions. Sometimes his distance has nothing to do with you. It may be his own confusion, his own struggles, his own fears. Other times, his silence is a mirror, showing you how much of your peace depends on his presence. Only when you are still can you see the truth of the situation. Chasing blinds you, but stillness reveals. When you resist the temptation to chase, you create space. Space for him, space for yourself, space for truth to emerge. The one who chases never allows time to reveal what needs to be revealed, but the one who remains still, calm, observant, patient, will see clearly whether the distance is temporary or permanent, whether it hides affection or indifference. Do not confuse stillness with doing nothing. Stillness is not passive. It is an active returning to your own center. It means redirecting your energy inward instead of outward. It means choosing silence over desperation, presence over panic, self-respect over self-abandonment. The world may tell you that you must act, you must fix, you must chase, but wisdom whispers otherwise. Remain still. In this stillness, something powerful happens. The person who distanced himself begins to feel the space too. He may notice that you did not run after him. He may sense that your energy remained whole, not broken. This shifts the dynamic, because when you do not chase, you silently communicate strength. You show that your peace is not dependent on his validation. You show that you are not grasping, not begging, not clinging. And this, paradoxically, is what often draws people back. But whether he returns or not is not the essence of this practice. The essence is that you have returned to yourself. The essence is that you have learned how to stand still in the face of uncertainty. The essence is that you have chosen balance over chaos. When you do not chase, you also protect your dignity. Chasing always comes at a cost, the cost of lowering yourself, the cost of silencing your own needs, the cost of bending until you break. Stillness, however, allows you to remain upright. It allows you to meet the situation with quiet strength, not frantic weakness. Consider the teaching of water. When a river flows too quickly, it becomes noisy, turbulent, and unclear. But when it slows down and becomes still, it reflects the sky like a mirror. In your stillness, you too become reflective. You begin to see what is real. You begin to notice your own feelings without being overwhelmed by them. You begin to understand the difference between desire and need, between attachment and connection. Stillness also gives you time, and time is the great revealer. Many mistakes are made because of haste, because of the urgency to fix what feels broken. But not everything is meant to be fixed. Some things are meant to be observed. Some distances are meant to be allowed. And only time, in stillness, can show you which is which. In this practice, you learn patience. Patience with yourself, patience with the other, patience with life. Chasing is impatient. It wants answers now. It wants control now. Stillness, on the other hand, trusts the natural unfolding of events. It allows you to breathe. It allows you to rest. It allows you to gather strength for what comes next. So when a man distances himself from you, and when he ignores you, remember this: the greatest mistake is to chase. Chasing will not bring him closer. It will only push him further away. Instead, return to stillness. Let your mind be calm, let your heart be steady, let your energy remain whole. It is in this stillness that you will find clarity. It is in this stillness that you will discover your own strength. It is in this stillness that you will remember who you are, even when someone else forgets your worth. When someone distances themselves from you, the mind has a habit of narrowing its vision onto that one person. You wake up thinking about them, you fall asleep with their silence echoing in your head. Every message not sent, every call not received, every glance not given. It all becomes heavy. The focus shifts entirely onto them, and without realizing, you hand over the steering wheel of your inner state. Suddenly, your peace is no longer yours. It is in their hands. This is why it is essential to shift the focus back to yourself, to redirect your energy inward, rather than letting it be consumed by another's absence. When a man distances himself, it is not your task to run into the emptiness he has created. It is your task to fill your own space with yourself again. Most people believe that when they lose someone's attention, the way to restore balance is to try harder, give more, or make themselves smaller in the hope of being accepted again. But this is a trap, because the more you invest in chasing, the further away you drift from yourself. You become like a river that pours endlessly into the ocean, forgetting that it too has its own banks, its own current, its own path. Shifting the focus back to yourself means remembering your own river. It means turning your gaze inward and asking, what do I need? What have I been neglecting? Where have I abandoned myself while trying not to be abandoned by him? These are not easy questions. They require honesty, and honesty often reveals uncomfortable truths. Perhaps you will notice that you have not been nourishing your body as you should. Perhaps you will see that your mind has been consumed with worry instead of clarity. Perhaps you will realize that your sense of worth has quietly attached itself to someone else's presence. This realization is not meant to bring shame, but awakening. Because once you see where you have drifted, you can return, and the return is powerful. Redirecting focus back to yourself is not selfishness. It is self-preservation. It is remembering that your first responsibility is always your own well-being. You cannot offer love from a place of emptiness. You cannot stand strong when you have abandoned your own center. By turning attention back inward, you recharge, you restore, you realign. Think of it like a lamp. When plugged into its own source, it shines naturally. But when you unplug it and try to connect it to another lamp, hoping their light will power you, both eventually fade. To shine, you must return to your own source. Shifting focus back to yourself is reconnecting to that source. What does this look like in practice? It means investing time in what nurtures you. If your body feels heavy, move it. Walk, stretch, breathe deeply. If your mind feels scattered, bring it back with meditation, with silence, with mindful observation of the present moment. If your heart feels empty, fill it with what inspires you: art, music, nature, learning, creation. The absence of another person does not mean the absence of life. Life remains, and it calls you to engage with it fully. When someone distances themselves, the temptation is to pour all your attention outward. Why is he doing this? What does it mean? How do I fix it? But every question that points outward drains your power. Every question that points inward restores it. Ask instead, what do I want to grow within myself right now? How can I strengthen my own roots? Where can I bring peace into my own day? This change in questioning shifts the entire energy. And something subtle but powerful happens when you do this. The person who distanced himself begins to sense it. Even without words, he notices the shift, because energy does not lie. When you stop chasing and begin nourishing yourself, your presence changes. You stand differently, you speak differently, you move differently, you carry the quiet strength of someone who has remembered their own value. But this redirection is not done for him. It is not a strategy to win him back, it is for you. Because whether he returns or whether he continues to walk away, you remain whole. You remain rooted. You remain connected to yourself. And that connection is what prevents you from breaking when someone else withdraws their attention. There is also another truth here. When you place all focus on another person, you shrink your own world. You begin to orbit around them as if they are the sun, forgetting that you too are a source of light. But when you shift focus back to yourself, your world expands again. You begin to notice the parts of your life that were waiting for your attention, the goals you set aside, the passions you paused, the friendships you neglected, the self-care you postponed. Slowly, by redirecting attention, you begin to rebuild. Shifting focus back to yourself is also an act of self-respect, because when someone ignores you and you continue to invest all your attention in them, you teach yourself that their absence matters more than your presence. But when you turn back inward, you affirm something far greater. I matter too. My life matters too. My energy matters too. And this affirmation becomes the ground you walk on, steady and firm. It is in these moments of redirection that you also discover new strength. You may realize that what you once thought you needed, you can actually live without. You may realize that what you thought defined you was only an illusion. You may realize that what you were seeking in him was actually a reflection of what you must cultivate within yourself. The act of shifting focus back to yourself is the act of coming home. A home that perhaps you left unknowingly when you placed your peace in the hands of another. But this home never left you. It waits patiently, quietly, until you are ready to return. When a man distances himself from you, the first reaction of the mind is often confusion, followed by fear, followed by an endless stream of questions. Why is this happening? What changed? Did I do something wrong? Does this mean he no longer cares? The silence becomes unbearable, and the distance begins to feel like rejection. Yet before drawing conclusions, one must learn to understand the nature of distance itself. Distance is not always what it appears to be. In life, distance carries many forms. There is the distance of neglect, when someone truly withdraws because they no longer wish to stay connected. But there is also the distance of reflection, when space is needed to process thoughts, to gain clarity, to breathe. And then there is the distance of growth, when the individual steps back, not because of a lack of love, but because life is demanding a period of solitude or personal struggle. To understand the nature of distance is to avoid mistaking every silence as abandonment. Consider the rhythm of nature. The sun rises and sets, the tides advance and retreat, the seasons bloom and wither. In all of these cycles, distance plays its part. The day distances itself to allow night to arrive. The tide pulls away only to return with greater force. The tree sheds its leaves, appearing bare and distant, yet in time it grows again. Life itself teaches that separation is not always final. It is sometimes a natural part of rhythm and flow. When a man distances himself, it may be his way of seeking balance. Some individuals retreat inward when overwhelmed, not out of cruelty, but because silence is their method of coping. Others pull away as a test to see if their absence will reveal truth, both to themselves and to you. And sometimes, distance is simply a mirror reflecting back the reality of the bond, whether it is rooted deeply enough to endure silence, or whether it was fragile, dependent only on constant attention. But the mind, when it does not understand, tends to panic. It begins to imagine the worst-case scenarios. It invents stories. It fills the silence with fear. This is why it is essential to pause and reflect. What type of distance am I experiencing? If you rush to conclusions, you act on assumptions rather than truth. And assumptions only deepen suffering. Understanding the nature of distance requires patience, observation, and calmness of heart. When someone creates distance, do not immediately see it as rejection. Instead, see it as space. Space can serve many purposes. Sometimes space allows emotions to settle, like muddy water that clears when left undisturbed. Sometimes space reveals hidden truths, because when a person steps away, you begin to see whether the bond was truly strong or only held together by proximity. And sometimes space is the very medicine needed, because closeness without pause can suffocate even the strongest connection. There is also a teaching here about control. Distance reminds us that we cannot control another's movements. We cannot dictate how close or how far someone chooses to be. But what we can control is how we meet that distance. Do we meet it with desperation or with dignity? Do we meet it with fear or with understanding? Do we let it consume us, or do we use it as an opportunity to turn inward, to strengthen ourselves in the space created? It is also important to recognize that distance can be an act of communication. Silence itself speaks. Sometimes it speaks of discomfort. Sometimes it speaks of hesitation. Sometimes it speaks of disinterest. And sometimes it speaks of personal struggle, battles that have nothing to do with you at all. But to hear what silence is saying, one must listen with calmness, not with fear. Fear distorts, calmness reveals. In relationships, we often cling to the illusion that closeness must be constant for love to be real. But love is not measured only by constant nearness. Sometimes true connection is proven by how it withstands distance. If someone can step away for a time and still feel the thread of connection intact, this reveals depth. If the bond shatters the moment space appears, perhaps it was not as strong as you believed. Distance also teaches self-reliance. When another withdraws, you are given the chance to rediscover your own strength. It shows you where you have relied too heavily on another for your sense of stability. It shows you where you may have leaned outward instead of standing firm inward. In this way, distance is not only about them. It is also about you. It is about learning where your peace truly rests. Think of two trees standing side by side. If their branches are tangled too tightly, neither can grow freely. But if there is space between them, each can rise toward the sun, strong in its own roots, yet still sharing the same earth. Distance, when understood, does not always mean disconnection. Sometimes it is what allows growth to occur. When you feel ignored or set aside, pause before reacting. Step back and look at the bigger picture. The space between you may be temporary or it may be permanent. But either way, it carries a lesson. It invites you to observe without clinging, to reflect without demanding, to hold strength even in uncertainty. Distance has the power to reveal truth more clearly than closeness sometimes can. Because when someone is near, you can be blinded by comfort, by routine, by familiarity. But when they step away, suddenly you see what was hidden. You see whether their absence leaves an emptiness that feels unnatural or whether it exposes a truth you had been avoiding. Distance clarifies. It strips away illusion. It shows you what remains when presence is no longer there. To understand the nature of distance is to step out of panic and into observation. It is to see silence not only as a threat, but as a teacher. It is to realize that space, while uncomfortable, can serve a higher purpose. Some connections grow stronger because of distance. Some dissolve because of it. And both outcomes are forms of truth. When a man distances himself from you and begins to ignore you, the natural tendency of the heart is to leak energy toward him. Your mind replays his words, your body feels the heaviness of his absence, your emotions scatter like leaves in the wind. Without realizing it, you begin to pour your energy into the gap he has created. And the more you give your attention to his silence, the more drained you become. This is why it is essential to guard your energy. Energy is not something invisible and abstract. It is the very force that shapes how you think, how you feel, and how you act. Your energy is your life force, and wherever you direct it, there it flows. If you spend your energy endlessly worrying about why he has pulled away, you weaken yourself. If you allow your emotions to spiral into doubt, insecurity, and overthinking, you give away your strength without even speaking a word. To guard your energy means to recognize its value and to protect it from unnecessary leakage. Consider a vessel of water. If the vessel has cracks, no matter how much water you pour into it, it will eventually run dry. Your energy works the same way. If you allow constant cracks in the form of obsession, overthinking, or emotional chasing, your inner reservoir will always feel empty. Guarding your energy is the act of sealing those cracks. It is the discipline of saying, my peace will not be lost to someone else's silence. My power will not be drained by someone else's distance. Guarding your energy begins with awareness. You must notice where your thoughts go. Every time you check your phone hoping for a message, every time you replay the last conversation, every time you imagine scenarios of rejection, your energy leaves you. These small leaks may not feel dramatic at first, but over time they erode your strength. Protecting your energy means becoming conscious of where your attention flows, because attention is the gateway of energy. It is important to understand that when someone ignores you, it is not only their absence that hurts, but the meaning you attach to that absence. You may tell yourself, I am not good enough. I am being abandoned. I am unworthy of love. These thoughts are like thieves. They steal not only your joy, but your energy. Guarding your energy means guarding your mind against such intrusions. It means choosing carefully which thoughts you allow to live inside of you. This guarding is not an act of closing yourself off. It is not about building walls of bitterness. It is about strengthening your center so that you are not easily swayed by the winds of another's actions. Imagine a flame burning steadily. If you shield it from the storm, it continues to shine. But if you leave it unprotected, even a small gust can extinguish it. Guarding your energy is shielding your inner flame. One of the ways energy leaks most is through reaction. When he withdraws, you may feel tempted to react with anger, with desperate messages, with attempts to force closeness. But every reaction is a gift of energy to him. Instead of nourishing yourself, you feed the very dynamic that drains you. Guarding your energy means choosing response over reaction. It means holding silence when silence serves you. It means conserving your words, your emotions, your efforts, until they are directed with wisdom instead of impulse. Your energy is also guarded through the company you keep. If you surround yourself with those who fuel your overthinking, who encourage you to chase, who amplify your fears, you open new cracks in your vessel. But if you surround yourself with calm, with supportive voices, with practices that center you, your energy is preserved. Guarding your energy means choosing your environment wisely. Another aspect of guarding your energy lies in physical care. When your body is neglected, your emotional resilience weakens. When you do not rest, when you do not nourish yourself, when you do not breathe deeply, your energy naturally declines. In times of emotional stress, it becomes even more important to maintain practices that protect your vitality. Movement, stillness, healthy food, and mindful breathing are not luxuries, they are shields for your energy. It is also necessary to remember that guarding your energy is an act of self-respect. It is saying, I value myself too much to give all my strength to someone who is not showing up for me. It is refusing to let another's withdrawal determine the quality of your inner world. It is the quiet affirmation that your energy belongs first to you and only then to others who have proven themselves worthy of it. Guarding your energy transforms how you experience distance. Instead of feeling powerless, you begin to see that you still hold control, not over him, but over yourself. You cannot force his presence, but you can protect your essence. You cannot command his attention, but you can command your focus. You cannot dictate his actions, but you can dictate the way you use your energy in response to them. Think again of the vessel of water. If you allow it to leak, you will constantly seek others to refill you. But if you guard it, even when someone steps away, you remain full. You remain steady, you remain capable of giving, but without losing yourself in the process. This is the essence of guarding your energy. When you learn to hold your energy within, you discover a calm strength. You no longer move from a place of desperation. You no longer scatter yourself in search of validation. Instead, you radiate from a center that cannot be easily shaken. This is not something that can be taken away by someone's silence. This is not something that can be destroyed by someone's absence. It is yours and it remains with you as long as you guard it. When a man distances himself from you, the first impulse is often to react. Reaction is quick, emotional, and often uncontrolled. It comes from a place of fear, insecurity, or frustration. You may feel the urge to send repeated messages, to demand explanations, to express anger, or to plead for answers. These are reactions, immediate discharges of energy born from discomfort. And while they may feel satisfying for a brief moment, they almost always weaken your position. Reaction gives power away. It shows that your inner state is controlled by another person's actions. When you react, you reveal that their silence dictates your peace. But response is different. Response is born from stillness, not from impulse. It is deliberate, measured, and rooted in awareness. To choose response over reaction is to remain master of your own energy even in the face of uncertainty. Think of the difference like this. Reaction is like striking a drum the moment someone else touches it. Loud, immediate, and without thought. Response is like playing a string instrument. Thoughtful, intentional, creating sound with purpose. Reaction is noise. Response is music. When you learn to choose response, you no longer rush to fill the silence that someone else has created. You do not beg, you do not chase, you do not explode. Instead, you pause, you allow the first wave of emotion to pass, you breathe, you create space between the event and your choice. In that space, clarity emerges, and with clarity you are able to act with wisdom instead of desperation. Choosing response does not mean suppressing emotion. It does not mean pretending you feel nothing. It means observing your emotions without letting them take full control. Anger may rise, sadness may come, fear may whisper, but you do not let these emotions drive the vehicle. You acknowledge them, you let them move through you, and only then do you decide what action, if any, is needed. Reaction is easy. It is automatic. But response requires discipline. It requires the strength to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to escape it. When he ignores you, your mind screams for closure. But closure gained through reaction is rarely true closure. It is simply an outlet for pain. Response, however, gives you real strength because it is aligned with your values, not your impulses. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, a man pulls away and ignores you. In fear, you react. You send long messages demanding answers. You call repeatedly. You express your anger in words that cannot be taken back. The result is usually regret, exhaustion, and a deeper sense of powerlessness. In the second scenario, the same man pulls away. This time, you pause. You feel the wave of emotion, but you allow it to pass. You do not chase. You wait until clarity returns, and then, if needed, you choose a calm, measured response, or sometimes you choose no response at all. The result is self-respect, dignity, and peace, regardless of his actions. Choosing response over reaction also protects your energy. Reaction drains because it scatters your emotions outward. It invests in chasing, explaining, or proving. Response conserves because it is selective. It spends energy only where it is worthwhile, only when aligned with your higher self. This is why the one who responds appears strong, calm, and composed, while the one who reacts appears unstable and desperate. In martial arts, there is a teaching. The untrained fighter reacts to every movement with uncontrolled force, but the master responds with precision, economy, and calm. Life is no different. When someone distances themselves, you can react blindly, wasting your strength, or you can respond with mastery, conserving your power and keeping your balance. Another aspect of response is patience. Reaction demands immediate action. I must fix this now. I must know now. I must be heard now. Response waits. Response trusts that time reveals more than force. Response understands that silence itself is communication, and that sometimes the wisest action is to allow the situation to unfold before deciding how to proceed. Response also comes with awareness of choice. When you pause before reacting, you realize you are not forced to do anything. You are not a prisoner of impulse. You can choose to remain silent. You can choose to focus on yourself. You can choose to walk away. Or you can choose to engage calmly if the time is right. This freedom of choice is what makes response powerful. Reaction often worsens the distance. It pushes the other person further away because desperation is rarely attractive. Response, on the other hand, creates space for respect. Even if he has withdrawn, your calmness silently communicates that you remain steady within yourself. It shows that you are not easily shaken, that you are not controlled by absence, that you carry strength even in silence. There is a deeper layer to this as well. Reaction keeps you entangled in his actions. Response shifts the focus back to you. With each response, you affirm your own authority over your life. You affirm that your emotions do not control you, and neither does he. You affirm that your dignity is more valuable than a moment of impulsive release. In the end, the choice between reaction and response is the choice between chaos and order, weakness and strength, dependence and independence. To react is to hand your power to another. To respond is to reclaim it. The one who responds does not ignore their emotions but channels them with wisdom. The one who responds does not move from fear but from awareness. The one who responds does not seek control over others but mastery over themselves. When a man distances himself from you, when he ignores you, when he withdraws his presence, the danger is not simply in losing him. The deeper danger is in losing yourself. For in moments of silence, the mind begins to whisper, perhaps I am not enough. Perhaps I have failed. Perhaps I do not deserve love. These thoughts creep in like shadows, and if you are not careful, they begin to distort the way you see yourself. This is why it is essential to recognize your own value. Your value does not disappear because someone else cannot see it. Your worth does not shrink because another turns away. A diamond remains a diamond whether it is admired or ignored, whether it is placed in light or hidden in darkness. Its value is not determined by perception. It is inherent. And so too is yours. But many forget this truth. They tie their worth to the attention they receive. If he notices, they feel radiant. If he withdraws, they feel invisible. This dependency creates fragility. It hands over the definition of your worth to someone who may not even know how to value themselves, let alone you. To recognize your value is to reclaim it from the hands of others. Recognizing your value begins with remembering who you are outside of anyone else's gaze. It means stripping away the layers of expectation, the roles you play, the masks you wear, and asking, what is my essence? What do I carry that no one can take from me? The answers are not found in external approval, but in quiet reflection. Perhaps it is your resilience, your compassion, your wisdom, your creativity. Perhaps it is the simple fact that you are alive, breathing, conscious, a unique expression of life itself. That alone carries immeasurable worth. When you recognize your value, you stop begging for crumbs of attention. You stop lowering yourself to fit into someone else's limited vision. You stop confusing absence with rejection and realize that distance says more about where they are than about what you lack. Think of a garden. Some people walk through it quickly, not stopping to notice the beauty, not pausing to breathe in the fragrance of the flowers. Does this mean the flowers have no value? No, it simply means the passerby is too distracted to notice. The flowers remain what they are, vibrant, fragrant, alive. Your value is the same. If someone chooses not to see it, that blindness belongs to them, not to you. Recognizing your own value is also an act of protection. When you know your worth, you do not allow yourself to be treated carelessly. You do not allow silence to destroy your confidence. You do not allow distance to erase your dignity. Instead, you hold yourself with quiet strength, knowing that you are complete with or without their attention. This recognition does not come from arrogance. It does not mean inflating yourself or believing you are superior to others. True recognition of value is humble. It is steady. It does not scream, "See me." It simply exists in quiet assurance. I know who I am. I know what I carry. And I know that my worth is not negotiable. To recognize your value also means to notice how you may have abandoned yourself in the search for someone else's presence. Did you silence your own needs just to be accepted? Did you ignore your own boundaries out of fear of losing him? Did you shrink your voice to keep the peace? These sacrifices often go unnoticed until distance brings them to light. And when they appear, you are given a choice: continue to live in the shadow of another or return to the light of your own worth. The truth is, when you do not see your own value, you begin to tolerate what should never be tolerated. You accept breadcrumbs where you deserve abundance. You wait endlessly for attention when you should be investing in your own growth. You cling to what hurts you because you fear that without it you will be nothing. But when you recognize your value, you remember that you are already whole. You realize that no absence can diminish you. You realize that no silence can erase what is within you. Recognizing your value transforms how you carry yourself. You no longer walk with the heaviness of doubt, but with the calmness of certainty. You no longer grasp for validation, but allow it to come naturally. You no longer fear loss, because you know that what truly belongs will recognize your worth without being forced. And if it does not, you have not lost. You have only been shown the truth. Value recognized becomes energy preserved. It stops you from chasing. It stops you from begging. It stops you from fighting for a place in someone's life who has already chosen distance. Instead, it redirects you back into yourself, into your path, into your growth. This is not withdrawal, this is empowerment. It is choosing to live from fullness rather than emptiness, from dignity rather than desperation. The more you recognize your value, the more life itself responds. Opportunities come, relationships shift, respect grows, not because you demanded it from others, but because you finally embodied it within yourself. The world mirrors back the way you see yourself. If you see yourself as unworthy, the world echoes it. If you see yourself as whole, the world reflects it. Recognizing your value sets the tone for how life treats you. And so, when a man distances himself from you, when he ignores you, when he withdraws, pause before you allow the mind to collapse into stories of rejection. Return to yourself. Remember the diamond. Remember the garden. Remember that your worth is not diminished by absence, not erased by silence, not defined by attention. It has always been within you, and it will remain waiting to be fully recognized by the only person who truly needs to see it, yourself.